after yesterday, I was strongly considering adopting the stage name Tim Draper to goose the attendance numbers a little bit. I'm glad the people that stuck around stuck around. Let me know when we have Garrett, because I don't want to give him short shrift. And I think he's probably listening right now and rolling his eyes at my bad jokes. Oh, there he is. Are you wearing the Jordan polo there, Garrett?
Of course I am, Dan. You know that I'm
okay, gotcha.
contractually obligated to represent.
For those that don't know, Garrett's got two wardrobe choices. It's either something Jordan brand or a black V-neck. Is there a reason for that? I think we'll get into it. I think that's a natural segue. Garrett, why don't you start, because you're not here? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your background in sports and sports business, and then we'll go around the room real quick.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dan. I'm happy to be here. My name is Garrett Klugh. I manage all the venture activity for the family office of David Falk. David most notably represented Michael Jordan for his entire career, along with many other Hall of Fame athletes. We can maybe talk about the film that's out now at some point that features David in it that maybe some of you have seen. We broadly look at sports, media, and entertainment deals. We're active in everything that we do. We like to try to add strategic value. David has folks that run, passive investments for him. This is more about how he spends his time and how we spend our time and money to produce, outcomes that both are, financially rewarding, but also intellectually rewarding as well. That portfolio that I manage probably has a dozen companies in it, and we probably have 4 that are incubating or in different phases of development at this point, to include some TV shows, which Dan knows some about. I've been involved in sports for almost 30 years in different capacities. And between the two of us, when it comes to sports, media, and entertainment, David and I can cover off on a lot of bases. Obviously, he way more than I, so I'll keep it brief.
So a couple of follow-ups here, Garrett. One, he's being bashful. He also failed to mention that he was an Olympic rower at one point, but I guess that's a footnote for you. And then secondly, Garrett, have you actually seen the movie that you're talking about, or is that still verboten?
I read the screenplay. I haven't seen the film yet. At David's request, have not seen it. So at some point we will, but not yet.
Yeah, for the record, for those that have seen it, it's mostly fabricated, so don't believe what you see. Nevertheless, Wayne, you have the mic, so why don't you go next?
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. And if I can sort of see everybody over here, my name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital. We are a sports tech venture capital company, and we invest solely in the world of sports and solely in startups, as well as we have our 76 Capital sports advisory business, where we advise teams, leagues, brands, and family offices on what's next in the world of sports and ways that you can integrate sports betting, esports, the future of digital, social responsibility into the world of sports, and use all of these things to increase the value of the asset that you have.
So I guess you're talking about sports as a brand and platform.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we believe that the world of sports, like Garrett, is an asset class today. There's an opportunity. Truly, the world of sports has become an incredible. There's been incredible things that have happened over the last several years in the world of sports, and we'll certainly get into that. At 76 Capital, many people, over the years have known me as a venture capitalist, investing in startups from the consumer tech side of the world, companies like Seamless Web here in New York City. A lot of people are familiar with what we did there. Back in the day, also as investors in the health tech world, where we were investors in companies like Take Care Health Systems, which is the company that, now the clinics that you see inside of Walgreens, you go and get checked out by a nurse inside of Walgreens. That was also one of our startups. But for the last 7 years, though, we have solely invested in the world of sports because of the belief that tech, data, and analytics are really transforming the world of sports. And fortunately for us, getting behind some amazing entrepreneurs, companies like IvyFON, the sports betting media network that was started by Brent Musburger. That's now we built that company with them. and then sold that company to DraftKings. We've sold companies to Fubo TV. We've sold other, media and companies that are in and around the sports world. So it's a really exciting time to get behind entrepreneurs who are truly pushing the limits and doing the next thing in the world of sports. And those are the types of things that we invest in on the investment side of what we do at 76.
So I guess that is last but not least, Jamie.
Hi, thanks. I'm Jamie Gold with Haas Portman Family Office, but most people know me from winning the World Series of Poker, the largest event ever. And we had traditionally just been more in tech. We made about 64 investments in the tech space, but most recently we've gotten really into the sports, gaming, sports betting, fantasy sports kind of ecosystem, and we heavily, believe that that's where our future resources should be going, and we're very excited about the space. And so, especially as Wayne mentioned, at the intersection of technology and sports, connected to sports betting and gaming, social gaming, it's a booming business and a great space to be in. So thanks for having me.
And Jamie's also being bashed, but before he was a World Series of Poker champion, he was a big Hollywood agent and he used to represent, among others, one James Gandolfini, who you might know as Tony Soprano. So in any event,
Correct.
so I guess, Jamie, you're the last but not least, and I am the last and least. So as far as most people, I feel like a lot of people here know me, but as far as why I have any credibility in this space is I spent my entire career in sports. In addition to being a professor in NYU sports business program, I've been an operator several times over in sports tech startups. And actually, funny story, courtesy of Wayne, I'm the guy you could either credit or blame for having developed and sold Pete Rose's gambling podcast. For those that like baseball, that'll resonate. And ironically enough, I'm a lawyer in sports, and so it's funny that I'm in a big law office right now. But
We would love to have Pete Rose here one day too.
You don't have enough cash for it. Yeah, there's Pete'll do anything for cash, but you got to put at least 5 figures on the table.
Yeah, coach for my kids' little league team.
Oh, in Florida?
Over at top.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or he was.
I could turn this all into a one-man show telling Pete Rose stories, but no one's here for that.
You guys from Philadelphia love him, so.
Yeah, no, but
Just remind me, I want to bet on Jamie's side, never against him. For two reasons.
well, I think that's a natural segue, and for this reason. So some people talked about Mark Lazary in this room yesterday, and people know him from Avenue Capital, but 10 years ago, 9 years ago, people thought he was crazy for putting $400 million down to buy the Milwaukee Bucks. And then a couple months later, I think Steve Ballmer blew him away to buy the Clippers for over $1 billion. And then I think he just cashed out for over a $3 billion valuation. The Broncos just sold last year for about $5 billion, and the Washington Commanders sold for about $6 billion. So it seems that sports appears to be inelastic and recession-proof. Do we collectively in this room agree, disagree on this panel? Wayne, I'll kick it to you.
No, I do believe that the sports industry is recession-proof for a number of reasons. Number one, you talked about the high end from a ownership perspective, but like I would look at it more down to what you're just mentioning to your, from a little league perspective. There is no amount of money that a parent will not spend trying to make their kid to be the next LeBron, Serena, Aaron Judge, whatever you say. It's unbelievable what's going on in the youth side of the sports world. And that is something that recession, no recession, everything going great, people are spending unbelievable amounts of money with their kids to try to get them to become an amazing athlete. At the same time, people are incredibly passionate about the world of sports more than almost anything else. I would say people care about sports as much as, well, I think family is maybe first and maybe sports second in some families, right? In my family, it is because we like each other, but like in many other families, it's switched. But like that's one of the other really big things. And you think about the brand, you think about sports, you think about how people are brought up. You're brought up as a Yankees fan and you'll die as a Yankees fan. It's like you will tattoo the Yankees, the NY on your body, but you would never put some other brand like Walgreens or Walmart or Target or something. No one would do that. But this is sports. Sports has Costco, yeah, of course. Your card right on your you roll up your sleeve, right? But I mean, like it's really it's amazing to think about all these things. And then it's also it's the only thing left that you'll that's something it's appointment viewing, right? The game is on at 7, right? The show is on at 8, but so what? You can watch it tomorrow. You can watch it over the weekend. You can watch the movie whenever you want. I did see Air and I loved it, but we can talk about that in a minute. But I mean, but it is one of those things where that's the other amazing thing about sports. You're never gonna, the game tonight. You're not gonna watch it tomorrow. You already know the score. You're gonna watch it then. And that's the other incredible thing about sports. And that's why I think we are only just getting going with the value of these teams and the value of, again, how technology, data, analytics, streaming, all these things that everyone, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, all the tech stuff that you hear about, all that stuff is now becoming part of the world of sports in big ways. And it's because of amazing commissioners like Rob Manfred, like Adam Silver. The list goes on of all the, what MLS is doing with Apple TV Plus. I mean, there's so many incredible things that are now happening and are bringing the world of tech into sports and transforming this world of sport. I just think we're just getting going.
I would like to note for the room that Roger Goodell was not mentioned as one of the great commissioners. Jamie, go ahead.
I'll mention it too. Sorry.
So these are really good points that Wayne's making. I also see value in the community aspect of monetizing these communities that are built into sports. So when you invest in something, usually it comes along with this kind of fandom in the community where you can monetize, where that's not always the case with other investments. And so I also think that there's going to be more opportunity for fractional ownership, and that most people are never going to be able to afford $1 billion sports team. But they dream about owning sports teams. They dream about being an agent or a player. And now there are going to be these simulated ways or, fractional ways that you can participate in that ecosystem. And so I think that, the world technology is obviously, an incredible thing and a scary thing. But it's providing so much more access and opportunity, especially in this sports world, that it's really exciting. I mean, and then, getting into, I'm sure at some point we're going to talk about the gambling aspect of things, the sports betting aspect of things that you can, people are betting on all aspects of sports, whether it was legal or not. You're betting with your friends. People are playing. Nobody stopped from doing this. They just weren't doing it in the traditional, with sports books and casinos. But the fact that things are now pretty much going legal around the country, and the way that you can combine the viewing experience with the gaming and gambling experience, takes it to a whole nother level. So the economy around all of that, as opposed to just watching as a fan, that you can actually put money on every aspect of the game during the game. It used to be if we were just going to bet on a game with our friends, you'd bet who's going to win, who's going to lose, right? That's the way that I grew up with it. But now it's so sophisticated that you can bet on any aspect of any second of any game, bet on the future outcomes, right? Bet on the, on the statistics, on the data. And so it's just creating more and more of these ecosystems where there were already the built-in fans. And so now you're monetizing it in so many different ways that I think that, as an investor, I'm so interested in things that are creating the future opportunities in sports. And then also the kind of democratization of some of these things, so that the sports books, who are the peer-to-peer sports books, which are something that I'm really interested in now, so that you're not just being taken advantage of, let's say, by the traditional sports books, where they used to just charge 10% when people were losing. Now sometimes they're charging 30%, 50%, 60%. It's crazy how high. And then if people are winning, they're banning them. I got banned from a sports book last week because I'm a winner. How sick is that? So it's, so, but it's creating opportunity, which means that there's going to be new opportunity for new businesses to take advantage of people that, if Wayne and I want to make a bet, why shouldn't we be able to make a bet with each other and let the the middleman take a small piece, but not a crazy piece that we can't overcome that over time. So I'm so excited about this world of investment in sports. And I'm, much newer to it. People like Wayne, I'm such a big fan of his, and being able to see and kind of follow on the genius investments that they're making, is, one of the ways that I've been really successful. I just follow on other geniuses. That's how I get successful.
Yeah, present company excluded, of course.
First thing, Dan, I'm extending you 10 minutes to talk even more, but.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Hopefully you guys talk about image and likeness and also the science of valuation, which I think is, like if Christian Leitner had been playing today, what would his image and likeness be structured, be like as an amateur?
Oh my God.
Sure.
It's down on a lot of cash.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're still on my thunder, Marty. But this is supposed to be an interactive session, so if you guys want to jump in, jump in. But funny. We mentioned betting. I think there's people that in the.
Martin can do anything.
Well, yeah, it's his show. But there's people. I bet you there's people outside betting the over under on this panel. So you just added 10 minutes to screw up everyone's bet. So you might have hit the over. Garrett, I don't know how you follow that, so I'll use it as a segue to say, in terms of we're talking about betting, what's your bet or what's your thesis, what's your view in terms of in this whole world of sports, whether it's sports technology, wagering, et cetera, where do you see opportunities for money to be made if your people that are sitting in this room?
Yeah, I'm going to regress a little bit here. First of all, if getting kicked out of a sports book for being too successful is a problem, that's a problem I'd love to have. And I'll probably never have it. But going back to your previous statement or question about whether sports is recession proof, I would say sports is recession resistant. Right. I think from a sponsorship perspective, you see in times of sort of economic uncertainty or turmoil that there's a flight to quality, and that certainly there are sports that are affected by this, and ultimately valuations are affected by that as well. And there's a saying that trees don't grow to the sky. I think lots of people have bet against the idea that valuations would continue to increase year after year after year after year. And at some point, there will be a point at which, it starts to plateau. Do we have any line of sight to that? Not from where I'm sitting. I think that, Wayne articulated it very well, and all the reasons that there's more value in the future, not less value. And a lot of that is based on media rights. But I think you have to be, circumspect about evolving to Generation Alpha's viewing habits, right? And I think that this sort of plays into the question that you just asked, Dan, which is, how does betting and engagement in broadcast, have to evolve in order to be able to attract a new generation of fans beyond, taking your son to the baseball game and then he's forever a baseball fan. There has to be other new and innovative methods and means to be able to engage a consumer that has more clutter, and more distractions, and more options, and more opportunities than ever before. And I think, if you had said 10 years ago that Formula One will be where it is today, I think you'd probably get laughed out of the room. So there certainly is capacity and interest in understanding and getting connected to us sports, but it comes with great storytelling. It comes with new opportunities around betting. And I think, not all sports, you don't treat them all the same. So I'll pause there.
I understand that we have questions, right, Marty?
Yeah. If any of the guys online want to ask their questions, Ron, Steve McCarthy. Ask Steve McCarthy. Ask him if he wants to ask his question.
Otherwise, I have plenty. Wayne, I saw you were getting ready to respond. So why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what Garrett was saying is right. And I also would say that, he's talking about F1, but if we were sitting here a little under 5 years ago, so 5 years ago on May 14th, 2018, the Supreme Court came in and overturned the law, the PASPA, which was the law that said sports betting was illegal it was only legal in the state of Nevada, and you could do a little bit of betting in a couple other states in sports betting. But then the Supreme Court said that was unconstitutional, and that's been this unbelievable praise over the last 5 years, which has allowed now 38 states to pass laws to have sports betting. So we went in 5 years, and we had this little COVID thing in the middle of it, right? So we went from just the state of Nevada to now 38 states that have laws. If we would have sat up here back then and said that 38 states would have sports betting in 5 years, you would have laughed us off this panel, right? Just like we're talking about F1. So to see the velocity and the speed of all the things that are now happening in and around the world of sports, it's truly happening. The amount of money that's being bet. We only have had sports betting here in the state of New York for a little over a year, and the amount of money that's bet, and in every single month, the handle's been over $1 billion every single month. It's amazing, and we're just getting going. And a lot of people don't even realize that legalized sports betting is out there. We talk about NIL. You talked about name, image, and likeness, right? Talk about colleges and what's going on in the world of colleges. Well, there's a number of things there, right? So all of a sudden, over the last 2 years, you have college athletes who can actually make money from their name, image, and likeness. We just, the two, I don't know, maybe you've saw the news this morning, but the two twins who played at the University of Miami, they just left Miami, and now they are sponsors for Better. That's Joey Levy and Jake Paul at their sports book. I mean, to think that they would have left to go now to be a sponsor of a sports book is crazy, but that just happened this morning. There's so many things that are now happening. The world of college athletics has completely changed. I mean, the teams that are going to win the NCAA tournament from basketball, the football teams are going to win, are the ones who have boosters who are giving the players the most money, paying the most money. That's what's going to win these games. That's how it's going to work. It used to be, this program got a lot of money and you're able to recruit people, and there was under the table money. Now it's over the table. It's all out in public sight, and but at the same time, it's in public, but it doesn't have to be reported. And that's another problem that the NCAA has right now. So they're having to deal with that. The new commissioner is going to try to figure this all out. But as I say, the toothpaste is out of the tube. I don't know how you get it back in. I've never been able to figure that out. But think about that. I mean, these people are getting, students are getting paid, and what are they going to say? Now there's a salary cap? Maybe, but then who's going to? Then it's the lawyers here are going to make a lot of money, for filing a lot of lawsuits.
I've seen questions, Garrett.
Sorry,
okay,
Dan. We have a question. We have a question from Stephen McCarthy that came through the chat here. If any of us are familiar with Athletes Unlimited, started by Soros and Patrikoff, and does the business model make sense?
Well, let's answer the preliminary question. Who here is familiar with it? Garrett, are you familiar with it? Oh, Wayne is. Okay.
I am, and I think the jury's still out in terms of whether ultimately it will grow to what they think it will grow into. But I think it's really well positioned. I think it's really smart, and I think it's heavily focused on women's sports, which I'm really bullish on. And I think that that's sort of the next frontier in monetizing sports. I think it's a really well executed so far concept and vision, and I'm watching it very closely.
Wayne, I saw you going for it. Jamie, I don't want to give you short shift. If you have anything to add about this.
Yeah, I think what Athletes Unlimited is a league or leagues, basketball, volleyball, softball, all female sports leagues. And if any of you saw the women's NCAA tournament, the basketball tournament, it was phenomenal this year. I think the ratings were incredible. The amount of money that was bet as well on those games is an all-time high. So women's sports, I think all of us in the world of sports are bullish on what's happening there, and that's an exciting new area that I wouldn't say new area, but from an investment perspective, and what John Patrikoff is doing there. I've been very excited to see that. And if you have a chance to go to some of those games, I've been to their basketball games in Las Vegas when they had them there. Check it out. It's really entertaining.
So I saw hands just in the order that I saw them. Why don't you go ahead over here?
Yeah, so you talk a lot about, the betting side, but do you invest in other segments? Like, for instance, I just saw this guy last week talk about an app. It's not an app, it's AI that they have sold to UEFA to control the stadiums so they don't have any like violence and stuff like that. So it's trying to come to the US to do that for baseball. So what are the other areas besides betting that you see that you could invest in that?
I kind of want to kick it to Jamie because I haven't heard him talk in a while.
Sorry, what's the question?
The question was, what are the other areas aside from betting where you're going, where you see opportunity for investment? Is that the question? Yeah.
Okay, I think we kind of covered it in the beginning, but it's the intersection of technology, sports, gaming, data, social, community, all of these different ways that we now have in the modern era of monetizing sports investments, so that it's not just about betting. There are plenty of things that you can invest in that have nothing to do with gambling at all. But there is very often an extra layer of potential for a financial windfall because it's so well accepted now. So I think that's why we're focusing on that.
So, two-part question. On women's sports, the controversy right now is transgender women in the sport and the whole debate as to whether that should be permitted or not permitted, whether a different league should be set up for these people who deserve to play, but not necessarily, in the women's league. There have been instances where, like in swimming, where the domination is just complete. And so what does that interest in women's sports depend on this issue being resolved? Number one, in your mind. And number two question is there money to be made in less than Premier League? In other words, minor league. Is there an opportunity for investors in that segment?
So I don't want to disregard your first question, but I have a rule of thumb for myself. If there's any topic where I might get canceled, I'm not going to address it. That first one, not touching it. And I'll do it. I'll do my panelists a favor and say, if you guys want to address it, that's up to you.
To rephrase it differently, did having these men participate in women's, swimming national and like in Connecticut, they said all of the back in the field. Did that increase ratings? And does anybody know? I just want to know. Does anybody have any data on that? Is it better for ratings or no?
You guys could all say no if you want.
Yeah, no one. Okay, great. So let's go on.
I think in general the issue is more of a media issue than it's a much smaller issue in the actual. There are just a few people that are trying to do that, and they're making it as if it's the issue of I think women's sports is going to thrive with or without that issue.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding about amateur sports is that it's the women who are making all the money in the NIL business, right?
I wouldn't say that.
Hey, Marty.
No, I think it's getting more attention.
Okay, got it.
Marty, can you hear me?
Yes.
Marty? Yeah, Marty, Steve McCarthy. I went to Wesleyan. I know Soros. I've seen his presentation. He pays the women $20K a season for playing sports. This business model is terribly flawed. You've got two very wealthy billionaire sons playing games with this. I played point guard at Wesleyan. I know the sport very well. And when I talked to a senior guy who ran the NFL and the NBA, he said, this is really not quite up to snuff. So unless you're looking at betting or you're looking at endorsements or other stuff, those minor sports that they're backing, softball, volleyball, all the other ones, even the WNBA women get paid $100 grand. It's an ancillary process. Check it out.
Okay, well that's some information I wasn't expecting. Nevertheless, there was a good second question there, which is are there opportunities outside of the major leagues? And Garrett, I want to give you this question because this is a subject you and I have talked about quite a bit, where there's an opportunity to make money other than, let's say, the big four majors. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think we could spend some more time talking about women's sports, which I think definitely there is opportunity there. But I think there are emerging sports that present interesting opportunities, both from an enterprise value and just from a demographic standpoint. And I'm specifically talking about Formula E, which is the electric version of Formula One. Dan and I have some experience with Formula E and team valuations. And if you think electric vehicles are going to be part of the future, there's only one championship that exists with a single seat open wheel until 2037. So, from my perspective, there are opportunities in other than the big four in terms of entry points where you don't have to write a 9-figure check to get in, and it's perhaps akin with the Dan likes to say of investing in the NBA in the 80s, right? Media deals weren't done yet, but for those that did, that turned out to be a pretty good investment. I think there are other opportunities that exist that are like that. There's also some that are going to go to zero, right? The list of those, whether it's they're backed by questionable economics or or other factors, but I think you have to look into the future and say, okay, what's growing in popularity? What attracts the right demographic? What presents a viewer opportunity that isn't 3 hours long, and this is sort of what the next generation looks for.
Okay, so Formula E is one answer. Wayne, what's your take in terms of minor leagues? Are you about to tell me that you're going to buy a live golf team? Because if that's the case,
I just, first of all, I'll address the comment. I think it's disappointing people are saying these things about women's sports or other pieces. I think it's just unfortunate. This is, we're all about at 76 Capital backing entrepreneurs that are smart, that are nice, that want to change the world, and that's that kind of stuff. I don't need to be involved with stuff like that. But anyway, it's unfortunate people have those kinds of views, but everyone can have whatever view they want. I think from a sort of a second tier perspective, the opportunity of the minor leagues for minor league baseball is very interesting. I think minor league sort of soccer and sort of the second and third and fourth tier soccer leagues, just watch Wrexham, go and watch that, watch that show. It's really fascinating to see what it's like to buy a second or two, actually they're like a third or fourth tier soccer team in Europe, and see how they've been able to build and grow that business. And how they came in and really actually commercialized the soccer world. But I think that's what the real opportunity is. In the last 2 years, over 40 Americans have gone over to Europe and bought soccer teams. And what's happening is all those owners who are the private equity tycoons and some of the billionaires from here in the US are going over there, and they're instituting brand new technology, data, analytics systems. They're using AI. They're using augmented reality. They're using everything they have to make those teams better. And not only from a playing perspective, but it's also from the overall real estate and infrastructure perspective, building out the stadiums. A lot of the stadiums in Europe are old. So there's an opportunity to completely, groups like OVG and others are over there right now, building the next generation stadiums. The same thing's happening in Japan as well. So the world of sports and as I said earlier, one of the big things that we believe at 76 Capital is that this opportunity to invest across the whole ecosystem in sports, and really believing that the world of sports is an incredible asset class that has an opportunity for incredible growth.
Also, the Wrexham thing, there might be some Philly bias in that, right? Considering it's Rob McElhenney. For those that don't know, Rob McElhenney created the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Wayne is a big Philly guy, hence the 76 Capital. Nevertheless. So we're and Jamie, you feel free to address this if you want, and if not, I'll move on to another topic. So the world of sports is, and Wayne, you alluded to this, is turned into a really good platform to launch other products, right? So you see a lot of athletes getting involved in investing. In fact, you have partners in your fund that have gotten involved. So how has that changed since you've been in the space, and how can people who have either, let's say, portfolio companies that might be adjacent to sports can benefit from it as a platform? Okay, well, I have other questions. Sorry.
If I were an investor in one of your funds. One of the things that would attract me, and you could comment to the degree to which you address that, would be as if I know as I do that Saudi Arabia is looking to open and do whatever it takes to get star A or B and team XYZ. I would like to see how you're positioning your portfolio so that I, as an investor, can make a quick exit because you were smart enough to figure out what do the Saudis want that's going to monetize more quickly whatever you're buying into.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll talk about a real life example. So one of our portfolio companies is called US Integrity. It's called US Integrity.
Integrity.
And US Integrity is a company that works with every single major league here in the US and around the world to make sure that sports betting is on the up and up. You know, we talk about the betting side, but we also want to make sure that everything's on the up and up and things are done correctly. You mentioned the Saudis. Live is a client of ours, right? The league. We work with the PGA and Live, right? To make sure that sports betting across those leagues is on the up and up, and there's no sort of, you know, funny business going on. So we believe that it's important to make sure that whatever goes on, you know, in the world of sports betting is done above board. So that's one of the ways, and one of the ways that we work with them today in the world of sports.
How much money did Saudi Arabia pay Argentina to beat them in soccer?
This is some panel here.
Well, only the hottest of takes here. All right, here, Ron, why
Are
don't
we
you-
taping this? I mean, let's go. Let's put this out on social right now.
Yeah.
I'm at 76 Cap. I'm at Wayne Kimmel all over the place. Let's go. Come on.
Ron, go ahead.
Whenever there are a lot of transactions, obviously the question of embedded finance comes in. So maybe a good lead in. How do your portfolio interact with fintech companies that are providing embedded finance in terms of both people who utilize and partake in the entertainment side of it, or people who provide services into those, and also employee benefits, for example, for a lot of these, very highly paid athletes, you get lots of real, workers. So their benefits are not as something that's in the world. So are there channels where we could work with you guys to in fact improve and monetize those opportunities? Fintech and benefits.
Fintech and in what was this?
Embedded finance.
Embedded finance.
Embedded finance means they're embedding like, when you're buying ticket, you could finance the ticket. When you have suppliers into a game, you could finance the suppliers. If you have employees, they could have advance payments and their salaries.
I feel like that's what we call in the legal profession a leading question, and also very specific.
You asked how does sports interact with
Sure.
fintech interacts with almost everything. So it is we see that there's a lot of opportunity.
I'm going to say that's an option.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Let's move on.
My question is this.
Actually, why don't I do the Oprah Winfrey thing so everyone, especially the ones at home, playing along.
Thanks, Oprah. My question is kind of a general one, but Ari Emanuel and his team they keep acquiring other businesses, verticals, and it's like there's the big sucking sound. And like you said, a bunch of families, when they buy a sports team, they get the real estate around it, the media tie up. There's always this big, almost black hole of opportunities that each time someone steps in some of these places, they take it all into themselves. And so it seems like at times there's less and less opportunities unless you have me in the right place just early enough to kind of be swooped up. Otherwise, it seems like it kind of runs away from anyone who tries to kind of jump in. So I don't know if you're seeing like we said, how easy is it for someone to come in and buy a small team? Not that easy. Maybe tokenization or something like that. People love to talk about might be an opportunity, but.
Can we shorten the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll jump in. I mean, look, I think that the values of the teams are going up. There's opportunities in other leagues. You mentioned pickleball earlier. There's things like that which you can buy teams in that. There's a lot of new emerging leagues that are now coming out. But at the same time, for us, the opportunity to be in the world of sports it's better than ever. Everyone's kids or grandkids wants to work in sports. Well, the opportunities are there. If you want to do something innovative in the world of sports, today is your opportunity. We see at 76 Capital over 180 business plans every single month, and sometimes more than that, of entrepreneurs who are from the fintech world, who are now looking at the sports betting world and saying, well, this is really interesting. It's like, when Brent Musburger started VSiN, it was like they were going to become the CNBC of sports betting. That model is what sports betting is all about when you really think about how things come together. So I really believe there are lots and lots of opportunities across sports today, more than you've ever seen before.
I want to bring you back into the mix here, Jamie. We talk a lot about the collision of betting in sports. How is the consumption of sports going to change in the next 5 to 10 years? Because it feels like it's all becoming one embedded experience as far as you being able to bet with a second screen and almost going to be on the same screen. So in your view, how is that going to change as far as how people consume it, whether that's the integration of betting or AR, VR, metaverse, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, people have been thinking that AR and VR was going to be happening 10 years ago. And for whatever reason, maybe it's the glasses, it's the clunky, it's the headaches, whatever it is stopped the AR and VR from being adopted by the masses. So, it's hard to predict on that. But I would say that certainly the single screen kind of opportunity will happen more where, it's amazing that we don't have this already, where you're watching a sporting event. There should be things across the left and bottom and right side, right, where you can buy that team's jersey, you can bet on the sport, you can do all the available ways that you can kind of create monetization based on that viewing experience. I think that will happen, in the next few years. And I also think that the new generation does, as it was mentioned before, that they have such a limited kind of capacity for focus, right? Because they're just overwhelmed from birth, basically, with every possible stimulant, visually, and so there are just too many options, right? As he mentioned. So I think that what's going to happen is that sports consumption will happen a lot more in the smaller versions, right? In the clips, that you'll be a fan of plays and moments, and but not necessarily where people are giving as much attention as they used to the full game, right? That they're interested in parts of it, but they're not always interested in spending, going to watch a game for 3 hours of time is a huge commitment now, where I still love to do it, but I understand that there's a new generation that does not love to commit 3.5 hours to one game. So I think that maybe there will be opportunity in the fractional kind of view of games, in whatever way that happens, whether it's the highlights, that the way they were selling Top Shot, right? That where they're just selling the actual highlights of things, right? So there's a whole economy around that, right? Of buying highlights and being excited about having, the people want the jersey, but they don't necessarily want to watch the whole game.
I'm sorry, what'd you say about short attention spans? I had to do it. I was waiting a long time to do it. Garrett, I don't know if you want to respond to this, but I'd at least give you the opportunity. If you want me to remind you what the question is, I can do that too.
I'm going to go back a little bit. I think the topic was brought up, but there was a question about sort of this idea of democratized ownership or fractionalized ownership. Typically, those have been presented using some type of blockchain technology. And there's been a lot of really smart people that have tried to set up these types of opportunities. And we haven't seen one that's really stuck yet. I think that we probably will eventually, but the problem with these marketplaces is liquidity, and we haven't. A marketplace has a hard time guaranteeing liquidity and being a neutral participant. And once you don't have the opportunity of liquidity, it really creates a problem. So, from my perspective, generative AI, blockchain, connectivity, and data are the four things that are those are the four major technological developments that will power all the innovation, not just around sports, but around a lot of different industries. I'm really excited to see how they will transform the viewer experience, the way that we consume, and the operational side of sports as well.
So this is how I'm going to wrap it up. So all of you guys are investors and have invested in different companies in sports. And so give me the one investment that you guys have made in recent memory that you're most bullish on and why, and what do they do?
I would say maybe in the we invested in something called SimWin, which is simwinsports.io, and it's all the leagues in the metaverse where you can watch 24/7. You can bet on it. You can actually be a player's agent. You can be an owner. You can have all those experiences that usually you would never be able to have. So, we have partners like Magic Johnson and Jerry Rice, and these kind of legendary athletes that are also investors that see this as part of the future of being into. It was created by the people who created Madden. So it's the next level of playing video games, but actually with player progression, so that when you play a video game, usually starts over, every game is the same exact game basically from start. But now there's player progression, so they get hurt, you have to train them, so that it makes you feel like you're part of that, you basically own a player, or that you are an owner, so that you have a much closer experience where most people will never have the opportunity to have that kind of experience. So we think that there's a really exciting potential for these kind of sports leagues in the metaverse.
There you go.
I would say, look, we always say at 76 Capital that we love all of our portfolio companies like children, so we love them all the same, right? But I'll point out one called Diamond Kinetics, and Diamond Kinetics is probably one of the things that all of you could, go home and have this experience with your son, your daughter, your grandson, granddaughter on trying to get better in the game of baseball and softball. And it's a company that we invested in along with Major League Baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and a number of other, really great groups. We helped start this company over 5 years ago. We're partners with Major League Baseball. It is a way for people to enjoy the game of baseball, enjoy the game of softball, and get better at the same time. And it's this whole merger that everything we've been talking about here, it's all about this idea of being able to swing that bat, throw the ball, but then also have this incredible experience from a digital perspective as well. And it's an incredible app. It's an incredible thing that you could do with just having your kids be outside and play the game. And it's the same thing that you as a young athlete can make your game get better. You can become better at these games, just like how the professional athletes, the professional baseball players do by using tech, data, and analytics to make them better. This is something that you as a young player can do. And we just love this company, Diamond Kinetics.
Wish I had that.
Yeah, I don't think there was any helping me as a third baseman that couldn't hit the first baseman, but that's probably an exception to the rule. Garrett, last but not least, why don't you go ahead and plug whatever you want to plug?
Yeah, let me start by saying this is definitely not a solicitation, but one thing that we're really excited about is that we're taking a company public called Digital Virgo via SPAC, and it's probably a company that no one's heard of. It's a French company that did over $47 million of EBITDA last year. And David, Harvey Schiller, John Miller from AOL are all executives in our SPAC. And this is a company that operates in 40 different countries, did over 400 million in revenue. And it's a mobile payment platform that works with telcos around the world. They don't operate in the US and Canada. And we are very, very excited about this. Ticker symbol GOLD, PUCK, PUCK. The name of the SPAC is called Goal Acquisitions Corp. Please, if you're interested, check it out. Again, this is not a solicitation. We are in the process of putting together the pipe for the deal. But unlike a lot of other SPACs in the market, this is a profitable deal that has grown year over year despite economic conditions. So we're thrilled to be taking them public and very excited for the future.
took full advantage of the plug. So with that, I would say give it up for these guys. And with that, I'll hand back them.